Have you ever watched a story unfold and felt the ground shift beneath your feet, where the clear-cut roles of villain and victim suddenly blur into a painful shade of gray? Welcome to a collision of two American fairy tales gone awry. On one side, Lisa Rinna, the consummate reality TV survivor, a woman who built a brand on speaking her unfiltered mind. On the other, Colton Underwood, the iconic virgin bachelor, a hero America rooted for. But what happens when Rinna's signature declaration, "he's a stalker," meets Underwood's heartbreaking confession of his own turmoil? This isn't just tabloid moise. Strap in because we're about to explore what this shocking clash reveals about the stories we're sold, the pain we don't see, and the surprising redemption that can emerge from the most broken of narratives. The masks of the arena. Visual. Split screen of Lisa Rinna on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, tense, pointing, and Colton Underwood on The Bachelor, smiling, giving a rose. Quick cuts of dramatic reality TV moments. Host, voiceover, thoughtful tone. To understand the explosion, we must first understand the arena. Lisa Rinna didn't just exist on reality TV, she mastered its currency, the explosive, unfiltered soundbite. In the world of Housewives, a label like Stalker isn't just a critique, it's a storyline, a weapon, a piece of performance art. It's decisive, and for an audience, it feels like a clear verdict. Host on screen. Now rewind. Colton's entire narrative was built on a different but equally powerful archetype, the chaste hero, the noble seeker of pure love. We, the audience, were handed these perfectly crafted masks. But what happens when the mask cracks? And what if, beneath both masks, there was a similar, raw human struggle they'd barely understood themselves? The answer, as we'll discover next, is where the real story begins. Beneath the label, a cry for help. Visual. Shift to more subdued, empathetic imagery. News headline clippings about Colton's coming out and mental health advocacy. Soft focus shots of someone looking overwhelmed. Host voiceover. Warmer, more compassionate tone. When Rinna's label hit the airwaves, it was explosive. But let's pause that clip, because the truly seismic event happened off-camera. Years later, Colton stepped out of the Bachelor narrative entirely and into his own terrifying truth, confessing to profound mental health crises, to being a kind of person I hated, and to the immense pain that fueled his actions. This wasn't a storyline. This was a lifeline. Host on screen. And here lies the stunning twist. Rinna's harsh public condemnation and Colton's private, painful confession were, in a way, pointing at the same dark hole, one from the outside with a spotlight, the other from the inside with a flashlight. One labeled it for drama, the other lived it in despair. But what does this teach us about judging the chapters of a person's life before we've seen how the story ends? The final act of this saga holds a lesson that might just leave you speechless. The unlikely parallel and the redemptive arc. Visual. Side-by-side photos transform. Lisa Rinna looking vulnerable in an interview. Colton Underwood looking at peace, maybe with his husband. Imagery of bridges being built. Host voiceover. Inspirational, surprising tone. This is where our perspective must make a bold, empathetic leap. Consider this. Both of these figures, at their core, have been architects of their own reinvention. Rinna, from soap star to reality mogul, constantly shedding skins. Underwood, from football player to bachelor to gay advocate, undergoing a profound metamorphosis. Host on screen. The shocking parallel? They both understood the immense power of narrative to destroy and to rebuild. Rinna used narrative as a tool for career survival. Underwood ultimately used his narrative as a tool for actual survival. His public coming out and mental health advocacy is, in fact, one of the most powerful redemption arcs in modern celebrity culture. He looked at the darkest part of his story and said, "This will not define me. It will guide me to help others." So, was Rinna wrong to call out concerning behavior? Or was she, in her brash TV way, echoing a painful truth that even Colton later had to face? The collision wasn't an end. It was a painful, public, and necessary point on a longer, more human journey toward wholeness. Conclusion and final takeaway. Host on screen. So when the Bachelor met the Stalker, what did we learn? We learned that reality TV sells us simple fables, but life writes complex, difficult novels. We learned that a label can stick, but it can't capture the entire evolving soul of a person. Most importantly, we witnessed that the capacity for change is the most inspirational plot twist of all. The next time you see a headline, a soundbite, a verdict handed down in the court of public opinion, remember this collision. Remember that behind every label is a story, and behind every broken story, there is the potential for a brave, beautiful, and surprising new chapter. The final edit is never truly in until a life is well lived. A generation's lens. Why this story resonates. Visual. Warm, nostalgic shots of TV sets from the 70s and 80s, newspapers, then transitioning to modern smartphones and social media apps. Host appears in a cozy, book-lined study setting. Host on screen, leaning forward, conversational tone. Now, if you're like me, you remember a time when fame had a different filter. It was polished, distant, mediated by journalists and talk show hosts who, for better or worse, acted as gatekeepers. The scandal arrived in the morning paper, not in a live tweet. And here's the crucial point. Our generation understands the weight of a reputation because we saw how long it could take to build one and how a single headline could try to tear it down. Host voiceover over shots of classic Hollywood versus viral memes. That's why this Rinna Underwood clash isn't just gossip. It's a case study in how the very architecture of reputation has been demolished. Lisa Rinna, in many ways, is a classic Hollywood survivor. She understands the old rules but plays ruthlessly by the new ones. Try to control the narrative first. Underwood's journey, however, represents something entirely modern, a reputation dismantled in real time, then rebuilt brick by painful brick through radical public honesty. It forces us to ask a profound question we've lived through. In this unforgiving digital age, does anyone deserve the chance for their character to evolve? The answer might lie in a surprising place, far from Hollywood. The human beyond the headline, a lesson in grace. Visual, tranquil, symbolic B-roll, a seedling pushing through concrete, a weathered hand smoothing a piece of wood, a sunset. Host voiceover, reflective and warm. Let's leave the soundstage for a moment. Think about your own life. Think about the moments you were least proud of, the times of fear, poor judgment, or pain that made you act in ways that didn't reflect your true heart. Thankfully, for most of us, those chapters weren't broadcast globally. Host on screen. Colton Underwood's greatest act wasn't going on a television show. It was later, looking at the fractured pieces of his public and private self and choosing, with staggering courage, to put them back together in full view of the same world that judged him. That is not weakness. That is a strength that defies most of our understanding of fame. And Lisa Rinna's blunt judgment, while harsh, reminds us of the essential human need to hold others accountable. The stunning synthesis here is this: true grace lives in the tension between accountability and mercy. It's the wisdom to condemn a harmful action while fiercely protecting the possibility of a redeemed person. But how do we, as an audience, practice that? The final key has been hiding in plain sight. Final revelation and call to action. Host on screen. Eye contact with the viewer. Music swells gently, inspirationally. So what's the ultimate takeaway from this modern-day parable? It's this: we get to choose the story we empower. We click, we comment, we share. We are the audience, but we are also the jury. This story gives us a choice. Do we invest in the explosive, simplistic headline, "He's a stalker," and let the story end there in condemnation? Or do we choose the more complex, more human, and ultimately more inspirational narrative of a fall, a reckoning, and a grueling climb back toward light? Host voiceover as the screen shows split images of Rinna and Underwood that slowly fade, leaving text. Choose the complex story. Seek the redemptive arc. Remember that the people on your screen are just that, people. Their struggles, mirrored in our own, are reminders that no one is a caricature, and that empathy, coupled with discernment, is the most sophisticated tool we own.